I hope your year is off to a great start, and I figured this is the perfect time for me to talk to you about the books that I do want to read from the new releases of this year. I'll also be talking to you about other books that I want to read that are not necessarily new releases. Essentially, this is just going to be my 2025 TBR. Now, before we begin, I do want to say there's hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of books that are releasing this year. I cannot go through all of them. The ones that are on this list are the ones that stand out to me, ones that just caught my attention. I simply cannot go through every single book that is going to be releasing this year, and even if I did, I'm not going to be able to put them all in this video because what are the chances that I'll read all of them anyway? First things first, at this point in time, today, when I'm filming this video, Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros has released the third book in the Fourth Wing series. This was like the TikTok series that everyone has talked about for forever. I mean, so many of us have read it. I feel like she really dropped a bomb on us on the second book in Iron Flame. So this is, I feel like, the book that's gonna reel it all in together. If you don't know what Fourth Wing is, you wouldn't be watching this video if you didn't know what Fourth Wing was, right? Right? Now, there's going to be a few books on this list that I have no idea what the plot is about, but I do know the author, and I know their track record from the time that I've read their books. And one of those authors would be Emily Henry. She's like an automatic purchase for me. She's an automatic read. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. No clue. No clue what this book is about, but this is on the list. But the next book I want to talk about is Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. The first book is Heartless Hunter, and it's about a witch and a witch hunter that develop feelings for each other. They're not supposed to like each other, but they do. The first book kind of ends in a way that you absolutely need to read the second book. I feel like the plot and the concept of the story is so unique that, yeah, I absolutely definitely want to read the second book and see where the rest takes us. The next book is Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao. I haven't read a book from this author before, but I do enjoy magical realism novels, and this book is that. I don't know too much about it, but from what I understand is that there is a magical pawn shop where someone can sell their regrets, and the main character embarks on a journey through this. That's all I know. It sounds interesting to me enough for me to want to read it. Okay, now for this next book, I know that she's a really popular romance author, and I apologize if the sun is coming in and out. It is the afternoon and it's been pretty cloudy today, but this next book is called The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I haven't read a book of hers. From what I'm understanding, it is a ice skating type of romance. She wants to make a name for herself off the ice. That's basically the summary of the synopsis that I gathered from Goodreads. This next book is Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. The last book that I read from Lisa Jewell is None of This Is True. Have you read that book? Okay, that book was really weird, kind of trippy. I mean, I don't even know how to explain that book because it was an experience of itself. I'm curious to read more of her books. I read a lot of thrillers last year, so I definitely want to read this one. It's about 3 women who are connected by a serial killer, I believe. So we'll see. Another automatic read is any book that Catherine Center releases, and she's releasing a book this year called The Love Haters. Why do I have a feeling that this is reminiscent of the rom-commers? Maybe because there's some resemblance in the title, kind of, sorta, from her release last year, but The Love Haters, no idea what it's about. I can assume it's about people who don't believe in love that end up finding love. Groundbreaking. But I'm still gonna read it. This next book is called A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim, and it is, I believe, kind of a story inspired by Beauty and the Beast. From my understanding, it's about a girl who paints and a dragon lord. They work together to do something, but I'm imagining that they develop a romance and it's fantasy. Both things check boxes that I look for in books. I feel like I don't do enough research for the books that I've added on this list. Some are just going off of vibes, and I feel like that's completely okay. It sounds good enough for me. I don't need to know every single thing about the book when I read. I really like the element of surprise. That's just me though. I know some people need to read reviews, need to understand how other people are experiencing it. That is not me at all, which is ironic because if you ask me about a book, I'll give you all the details. Sometimes I might even spoil it. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of excited about this one, but this next one is called Watch Me by Tahereh Mafi. She wrote the Shatter Me series. At first, it was kind of like a rocky start because I was getting used to Tahereh Mafi's writing. She's very lyrical. She has a lot of fluff in her sentences. It's hard to explain, but Watch Me is a continuation series from what happened in Shatter Me. And then lastly, Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This is part of the Skyland series. I've read every single book in this series. This series features women that are in their 40s, so they have a more mature outlook and mindset on how to approach love. Most of them already have kids, they've already been married, or in this case, I believe this third book is featuring their friend who is not married yet. So I'm curious, I'm so excited. I just love Kennedy Ryan's writing. The way that her books are written, it's almost like a manual, a guide, love for dummies kind of thing. It's just really refreshing to read. There's some spice in her books if you just need something that's a little bit more grounded when it comes to the love stories. I feel like this is a good story to recommend. The first one, Before I Let Go, oh my gosh, like my heart. I love that book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Okay, now the next few books that I want to mention are books that I definitely want to read this year, but they are not new releases by any means, but they're on my TBR because I need to read them at some point this year because it's about time. The first one on that list is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book, the second book in the Powerless series. I don't know if that's what the series is called, but the first book is called Powerless. The second book is called Reckless, and it's about time for me to read the second book. I will do it at some point this year. Basically, the story follows a girl who pretended to have had powers because she's living in a world where people do have powers, and if you don't have powers, you're considered either lower class or you are harming the purity of the kingdom, essentially, is what they believe. So the next book, of course, is going to be continuing that, but there is a subplot of an enemies to lovers romance, which is why I love it so much. I feel like the banter was just so natural. It's very like quick, snappy. I like that. It is YA, so keep that in mind. You're not gonna get a whole lot of spice from it, but if you prefer not to have spice, then definitely read this book. Oh my gosh, okay, this other book, I believe they are making a movie or a TV show about this, but The 7 Husbands of Emily Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I need to read this at some point. I've had this on my TBR for forever, but I don't know why I haven't read it yet. Maybe the mood hasn't sparked, but I am a true mood reader. It's like, if I don't want to read it, I'm not gonna read it. And I guess I just haven't had the mood for The 7 Husbands of Emily Hugo. Hopefully this year I will. Okay, and this one was on my TBR last month as well for books that I wanted to finish before 2024 ends, but The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. At some point this year I have to read that. I feel like these books, they've just been cast aside by other books that have just taken priority, but I need to make time for these books. That's what this part of the list is pretty much about. Next one is The Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Natural series. I read the first one, loved the first one, very quick, easy read. I feel like I would definitely read this. Out of all of the books on this list, I know for sure I'm gonna be reading The Killer Instinct because it would be a good palate cleanse for a really heavy book. The Killer Instinct is following a group of teenagers who have a natural ability to understand crime scenes, and they are hired by the FBI to look into cold cases. Yeah, It's a good one. Lastly, Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is a duology. I heard a lot of amazing things about this last year, so for sure I want to read it this year. This duology is following the Cruel Prince series, and I really did enjoy that book, and I heard a lot of great things about these two books, so that's why they're on my list. Well, that's pretty much everything on all of the books that I want to read this year. I feel like I could have added so many more other books, but this video would just take forever, and I know myself. I know that I'm not gonna get to all of the books, even if I had more books to share with you that I would want to add on my TBR. It's just not realistic. Tell me down below which books you would recommend to me, books that you are looking forward to reading this year that are new releases, that are not new releases. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss another video. Thank you so much. Bye.